chapter or Kerala region of IAPT has initiated this activities. And this is the speakers we have selected are very eminent and very apt for this National Science Day event celebrations, incorporating the concept of IYQ.
Sorry for
It
interrupting.
is a great occasion for
I'm getting
me to
host
join.
disabled attendee screen sharing. Sorry for
Hello?
interruption. It is
Hello?
saying host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Yeah,
Hello?
just wait,
We
sir.
will do it. Just wait.
Yeah,
Okay.
just wait.
Sorry for the interruption.
Can you hear?
Yes, sir. Continue. Please continue.
Okay, may I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, anyway, it is very honor for me to be part of this whole program. And it's also an honor for me to introduce the speaker, the second speaker of this event, Dr. Chinmoy Kumar Ghosh, who has been working under many capacities as director and involved with the IGNOU, Open University. Under various capacities as director of various schemes, he has participated. And also it is very occasionally very important that he is also an alumni of the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science. He is associated with that during his PhD program on doing his thin solid films while working as a CSIR scholar at IACS. So I think it is very appropriate for selecting him for this event. He is also a winner of the prestigious Aryabhatta Award for Popularization of Mathematics by All India Ramanujan Math Club. He was a nodal officer of various programs of IGNOU, and he is also a director of many programs undertaken by IGNOU. He has been holding membership of various statutory bodies of different universities. And after his retirement, he was serving as a consultant at the National Institute of Open Schooling, Center for Educational Technology of IIT Kharagpur, a subject matter expert in with the Tata Consultancy Services, and is currently associated with several projects of the NCRT and is engaged as a guest faculty in physics at the Ramakrishna Mission Residential College, Narendrapur, where he has he belonged to. It looks so. With this small brief introduction, because we are already crossing our time, so with this brief introduction, I invite Professor Ghosh to talk about another giant of Indian physicist, Meghnad Saha. Sir, please.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I feel honored being invited by IAPT Regional Council 14 to deliver a talk. In fact, we heard a very illuminating talk by Professor Nampuri. I don't know how my talk will fit in after that. In fact, I feel quite elated to see the galaxy of physics teachers who have joined this program. I extend my respectful pronouns to Professor Ajay Ghatak and my regards to all the honorable members who are present here. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Not, sir.
Not yet, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It is visible,
Full,
no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, visible.
Yes.
make it full screen.
Okay, okay, I'll make it full screen.
Could you please press that hide button also, proceed? Stop sharing that hide. Thank you.
So I'll be talking about on the topic Indian Renaissance and Professor Meghnad Shah. For an ordinary student of physics like me, I don't want to venture into the analysis of the phenomenal work done by Professor Saha, but I'll try to place his work, his contribution to science in the perspective of Indian Renaissance. So he was born on 6th of October 1893 on a very stormy night at a place called Sheudatali, a remote village in erstwhile East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, about 40 odd kilometers from Dhaka. You can see some in the screen, you can see some archaeological relics of Sheudatali, the place where he was born. He was among 8 siblings. There were 5 brothers and 3 sisters. Uh, the name of the other brothers were Joynath, Vijayanath, Judhishthir Lal, and Kanai Lal. I, of course, don't remember the names of the sisters, but I'll make a reference to the names of the brothers at a later stage. It is important to note that the names of the brothers were Joynath, Vijayanath, Judhishthir Lal, and Kanai Lal. And his father was running a modest grocery shop. In fact, they the condition of their family was of abject poverty, abysmal poverty, and on the top of it, they suffered a lot because of superstitions, as superstitions and dogma, they belonging to a lower caste. So this is something which created a lot of hindrance to his education. But then he, as a genius like Professor Saha, he was unstoppable. But these were the things which got impregnated in his mind. And that's how the concept of Renaissance also comes in connection with his pursuit for knowledge. In 1905, he stood first in middle school examination from Dhaka division and earned scholarship. Now, 1905 means he was 12 years old at that time. He was born in 1893. And he got actively involved in students' demonstration pertaining to the national movement. And this attended a peak during the visit of Bengal Governor B. Fuller. And his activity was so much pronounced that the school authorities, as a disciplinary measure, ousted him from the school. So that was going to be the end of road for him for education. But then, as I told, that he was unstoppable. So he joined a private school, Kishorilal Jubilee School, from where he stood first at the entrance examination. In 1911, at the Intermediate of Science examination from Dhaka College, he stood third. And in 1913, he stood first class second in BSc Mathematics Honors from Presidency College, Calcutta. You can see the photograph of the front portion of Presidency College in the inset in your screen. And then in 1915, he stood first class second in MSc Mixed Mathematics. So at that time, it was called Mixed Mathematics. See, in 1913 and 1915, he's securing the position of first class second in BSc and then first class second in MSc. So you might have guessed who would have been first class first. That was none other than Professor S.N. Bose. In fact, it was a galaxy of scholars who studied with him. To name a few, S.N. Bose, as I told, Professor Gyanchandra Ghosh, his name was spelt out by the previous speaker also. Gyan Mukherjee, Nikhil Ranjan Sen, Pulin Bihari Sen, Pulin Bihari Sarkar, Shailendranath Ghosh, Maniklal De, and some seniors were there, P.C. Mahalanobish, Nilratan Dhar, Shishir Kumar Mitra, to name a few. Now, P.C. Mahalanobish was born in 1892, Meghnad Shah in 1893, and S.N. Bose, as you heard, on the new year of 1894. So they all came together during that particular time. And also see the period from 1905 to 1915. 1905 saw the partition of Bengal by Lord Curzon. 1908 saw Khudiram Bose going to the gallows. 1911 saw the shifting of capital from Kolkata to Delhi. 1913, of course, had the silver lining of Tagore receiving the Nobel Prize. And 1919 saw the big Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So, Meghnad Shah was making his pursuit for knowledge with all these things happening around. So, let us see some fellow travelers in his journey. I've already named quite a lot of them. Now, their mentors were Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose and Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy. Even we can call Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose and Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy. And among his contemporaries, I have already named S.N. Bose and P.C. Mahalanobish. Of course, in this photograph, on this slide, I have included two more, Nazrul Islam and Subhash Chandra Bose. Nazrul Islam was born in 1899 and Subhash Chandra Bose was born in 1897. So he was a very favorite student of Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy. The reason being, Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy, along with his scientific pursuit, will lead the students to develop in them the right kind of spirit of inquiry and the right kind of scientific temper. It so happened, again, because of his low caste tag, he was not allowed to sit with other students at the hostel, at the college hostel. And so much so that, along with Gyanchandra Ghosh led that movement from the hostel, and they moved to a mess near Science College, Kolkata. So all these things were supported by Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy, and almost every evening they went to Kolkata Maidan to have lesson from Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy about development of scientific temper to fight against dogmas. How can science mediate and solve these issues was the objective of their discussions. And the distinguished academic positions which he held in 1916, on being invited by Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, the then Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, he first joined as a lecturer in the Department of Mathematics and later took transfer to Department of Physics. Sir Ashutosh Mukhopadhyay was a polymath, a great educationist. He became the vice chancellor. He served as the vice chancellor of Calcutta University for as many as 4 terms. He was a great mathematician. Particularly, his contributions to coordinate geometry was enormous. And then he also became a judge at the Calcutta High Court. So he picked up Professor M. Shah, along with Professor Rishan Bose, C.V. Raman, and so on. And in 1916, he became a lecturer in the Department of Mathematics. In 1923, he joined as head and professor at Department of Physics of University of Allahabad. He shifted to University of Allahabad, and there you can see Professor D.S. Kothari. D.S. Kothari was one of his students at the University of Allahabad. And he came back to Calcutta in 1938, where he joined as a Palit professor at the Department of Physics of the University of Calcutta. You can see the campus, the small little campus. In fact, Calcutta University was not having a campus, and it still does not have a campus, so to speak. But this is the famous Rajavaja Science College, where I also did my MSc. So in 1938, he joined as Polit Professor at the Department of Physics of Calcutta University, and distinguished academic positions in 1946 and 1951. He became the president of the governing body of the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, and after retirement, he served as the director of ISCS, as the director of Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science. You can see the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science. And in 1951, he established the Institute of Nuclear Physics, Calcutta, where he was appointed director. And after his demise, it was named as the Shah Institute of Nuclear Physics. Of course, this is a new building. The one you can see on the screen is the new building of Shah Institute of Nuclear Physics. It was shifted from the old building, which was a part of the Rajavaja Science College campus, which you had seen a little while earlier. So this was a gist about his journey of accomplishment from after he passed MSc and came into the arena of science research and other scientific contributions. In 1926, he became the president of Physics and Mathematics Division at the National Science Congress held in Bombay, now known as Mumbai. In 1927, he was nominated as a Fellow of Royal Society. Now, there is an interesting story about the Fellow of Royal Society, which was narrated by Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy to all his students. It was established, if I recall correctly, in 1662. And at some time, well, among all the erudite scholars at the Royal Society, there was a debate that whether the mass of a living cat will be the same, a living fish will be the same as that of a dead fish. That is, when the fish dies, will its mass be less, equal, or more than what it had been when it was alive? Now, all this debate had taken place without actually weighing the fish. So, to this, Professor Roy mentioned about our approach that we don't take hands on training. Taking hands on training and questioning the different laws, principles is a part of learning science. And so he said about this example because this debate has happened at no other place than the Royal Society. In 1931, the UP Academy of Sciences was established by Professor M. N. Saha, which was later it came to be known as National Academy of Sciences. And he has authored many texts, but we remember this famous text which he co-authored with Professor B. N. Srivastav, A Treatise on Heat. I think at the undergraduate level, we have read books like C.S. Selinger, Jimansky on heat and thermodynamics, but this was the prime text. This was the cardinal text we studied, which was co-authored by Professor Saha. Treatise on Heat by Shah and Srivastav was always a popular book to be issued from the library. In 1933, in Kolkata, he established the Indian Physical Society. And then establishment of National Institute of Sciences in Calcutta, which later got transformed into Indian National Science Academy. And there he brought out its organ in the form of Science and Culture. Now, this magazine still continues, Science and Culture. Uh, in fact, the popularity might have declined. That is unfortunate, but it is still continuing. And I shall make a reference to that at a later stage of my talk. And then he became a member delegate of Indian Science Mission to several countries. In fact, in 1921, after his theory of ionization came to be known, and he was invited by Arnold Sommerfeld in Munich to deliver a talk. And that was very highly appreciated by by several scientists, included Nernst, W. Nernst, S. Eddington, E. A. Milne, Max Planck, Sommerfeld himself, and Albert Einstein, to name a few. And this was the time this particular deliberation of Professor Saha took place in Munich. And Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, was very much at Munich at that time. And it is interesting that he got introduced to Professor M. N. Shah at Munich after he came to know that he has come to deliver a talk there. This almost a similar thing happened with Professor S. N. Bosch in Berlin, perhaps in 1930, that Einstein came to know Professor S. N. Bosch in Berlin. In fact, you heard that he became the Vice Chancellor of Vishwabharati. He became the member of Rajya Sabha, but he got introduced to Tagore by Einstein. It so happened that after having discussion with Rabindranath Tagore, Einstein had asked him, how is Junior Bosch doing? Now, Tagore was not clear about whom Professor Bosch is referring to as, Professor Einstein is referring to as Junior Bosch. First, the name of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose came to his mind. But then Professor P.C. Mohalanovish was there, and then he said, Gurudev, he's talking about S.N. Bose. And that's how Tagore came to know about S.N. Bose, and later its history. In fact, the famous essay on sciences by Tagore, Vishwa Parichaya, was dedicated by him to Professor S.N. Bose. And after independence, in 1948, he became a member of the Education Commission of India. In 1952, he became a member of the Lok Sabha from the Calcutta Northwest Parliamentary constituency as an independent candidate, and also nominated by Government of India as the chairperson of Vishwa Panjika Sanskar Samiti. Now, he fought as an independent candidate, and the Congress candidate lost hands down to him. Initially, he joined the nationalist movement led by Congress, but then he had differences, and so he left Congress and joined as an independent candidate. In fact, there were two lines of thought. One is directly plunging into the national movement, and another is supporting national movement, not withdrawing the support from the national movement, but to carry on with the kind of caliber, the kind of accomplishment they already have had. It is known that Bagha Jatindranath Mukherjee, who was a great freedom fighter, who lost his life while fighting the British off the coast of Balasore way back in, if I recall correctly, in 1936. He, or perhaps in 1925, he told Ibn Mirnath Shah that don't join politics directly because you remain for scientific research. And then, along with the reform of the Panjika, that is Alamnak, in fact, he made a lot of work, he made a lot of contribution towards the reformation of the calendar. And he went on behalf of Government of India in Geneva at the World Alumnac Reformation Forum. And then he was the chief architect of the Damodar Valley project. He was very much concerned about the people affected by flood. And this led him to working for this Damodar Valley project. In fact, he has made plans for the connectivity of the rivers and to sort of handle flood during heavy monsoon. And that's how the idea of Damodar Valley project came to him. In fact, he very actively participated in the flood relief in South Bengal in 1913 and in North Bengal in 1922. So that is, in 1913, he was still a student. So, but he plunged into the flood relief work. He was a nationalist from the point of view that he always felt empathized to the misery of people. And that was also the reason he joined the flood relief movement in North Bengal in 1922. And he also took the task of rehabilitation of refugees coming from East Bengal in 1947. That was at the time of independence, the time of the dreadful partition. In fact, he joined Gandhiji in Noakhali when Gandhiji had gone to Noakhali, and later he invited Gandhiji to deliver a talk when he was staying in Beleghata. Beleghata is a place in Kolkata after coming from Noakhali, and he requested Gandhiji to deliver a talk, and he was the chairperson of that particular meeting where Gandhiji delivered a talk on Indian independence. So now let me come to the issue of Renaissance. In fact, there is a debate whether we call it Renaissance or revival. In Europe, we call Renaissance and Reformation. But in India, we toy between these two terms, Renaissance and revival. So I was trying to create a backdrop of Renaissance to tell you about the journey of education as well as his contribution to the society, not only as a scientist, but as a leader, which has many facets. So the particular idea which had got some positive views among the people was that it came from ancient India, and particularly riding on the vehicle of the language of Sanskrit, the Vedas, the Upanishads, they came from there. Now, Professor Saha vehemently objected to that. His idea was, see, Renaissance had come during the early part of the 20th century. Now, why the early part of 20th century? Why between 1900 to 1930 there were so many scientists, so many scholars who came up? You name anybody like C.V. Raman, Shaha himself, Bose, Raman, mathematician like Ramanujan. So they all flourished during that particular period. So we are not against, we are not going against what was delivered by ancient India, by the ancient Indian thoughts. But we are also saying that, say, in the later half, in the later part, towards the end of the 19th century, when those cargoes from England was coming, from Europe was coming, then it brought, among other things, several books. And that books had the knowledge, had the store of knowledge, which led to this particular kind of renaissance in the early part of 20th century. Now let us see, and whatever happened as a continuation of the ancient Indian thoughts can be called a revival. But the Renaissance actually happened in the early part of 19th century. Like in Europe, the Renaissance happened in the 15th century. So these were the people who were very much influenced by European thoughts. See, Raja Rammohn Roy, he was an erudite scholar in Sanskrit, in Arabic, in Farsi, but he was also a follower of European thoughts. In fact, he passed away in Bristol. So he accepted the European thoughts, and he felt that the development of the country will come along with those European thoughts. The same happened with Dwarkanath Tagore, the grandfather of Rabindranath Tagore. So they were very much akin to the European thoughts. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, like Meghnad Shah was born in a very remote village, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was born in a very remote village called Bishingho in Midnapur. And he had also suffered the ordeals of poverty. He had seen how people are treated, how poor people are treated, how people of lower caste are treated. But then he accepted the European thought for any kind of development, any kind of modification. And the same with Michael Madhusudhan Datta. So these are some examples who were highly influenced by the European thoughts, and Professor Meghnad Shah followed them while creating his journey, the path of his journey for Renaissance. Now let me contextualize Renaissance. Let me put Renaissance in the Indian context. I was talking about several books which came through the ships and that became a feature towards the later part of 19th century. Now among them, there was one book by Thomas Paine. So the name of the book was Age of Reason. In fact, people didn't realize the value of that book. It was initially being sold for rupees 1 per copy. Only 100 copies had come, and they soon got exhausted. So that much was the demand for this European education, which spelt out reasons, which spelt out situation to move away from the dogmas, to clear off the dogmas. And later on, this Age of Reason got sold at that time for rupees 5 apiece. Then came, there were several people, but like David Hare, Alexander Duff, there were several such people. But in fact, I can't resist my temptation to mention about Derozio, Henry Louis von Derozio. He lived for only 21 years, 21, 22 years, and he started the Young Bengal movement. And riding on his vehicle came different streams of European thoughts. One of the fruits of this thought was Radhanath Sikdar. You must have known about Radhanath Sikdar, who calculated the height of Mount Everest. And I would also like to quote from Annoda Shankar Roy, a famous philosopher and a man of literature of the modern age. We can consider him to be a philosopher of the modern age. He remarks that Renaissance in India has not come from its ancient origin. He clearly states, in Bengali he says, আমাদের রেনেসা এসেছিল সাত সমুদ্র পার হয়ে পশ্চিম ইউরোপ থেকে. That is, our Renaissance had come from Western Europe by crossing the seven seas. প্রাচীন ভারত থেকে নয়, not from ancient India. প্রাচীন ভারত থেকে যেটা এসেছিল তার নাম রিভাইভাল. What came from ancient India is actually called revival. So this was a very clear indication of the Indian Renaissance about which we are discussing now. Now, what was the feature of this Indian Renaissance? This is called new learning, that is development of thinking faculty, which we tell these days also. In fact, you go through the document of NEP 2020, it has given some tremendous stress on the development of thinking faculty. That is, we all complain about the rote learning by the students, and we say that there is a decline in thinking faculty, but that came up at that stage also, that we should promote thinking faculty. Students should not hesitate to question their teachers. I was talking about Acharya Prafullo Chandra Roy taking all his students to Maidan and having discussions about particular scientific phenomena like the solar and lunar eclipse. He was wondering that why would people have fast on the day of an eclipse. But then all these things was happening by way of questioning. In fact, these days we teach a lot of answering skills. We don't teach questioning skills. So development of questioning skills, not hesitating to question the teacher, and the teacher was also not averse to this change in attitude. So these were some of the features of new learning. Keeping an open mind towards explanation of controversies, not to be dogmatic, non-acceptance of guruvad, promoting that there cannot be any high priest in science who cannot be questioned, and not to speak of high priest in academia who cannot be questioned. So these were some distinctive features of the Renaissance which we saw at the early part of the 20th century. You can see a galaxy of people who all questioned. I was talking about questioning skills. C.V. Raman questioned, why is the ocean blue? He could have accepted the explanation given by Lord Raleigh, but we know he questioned, and what emerged out of his questioning is a part of history now. And Ramanujan has questioned about division by zero or several such other things, and then he came to be known as a man who knew infinity. I have given the photograph of Professor Bibha Chaudhuri. Bibha Chaudhuri had questioned about the track of particles which she detected from the cosmic rays in the photographic plate. In fact, it's an unfortunate incident. I'm not going into the elaboration of that. Like Professor Nampuri was talking about Professor Bose being deprived of the Nobel Prize. I think Professor Bibha Chaudhuri also got deprived of the Nobel Prize. He questioned the track in the cloud chamber which she saw of the mesonic particles. Of course, at a later stage, a particular star HD 86801, HD 86801 has been named Biva in her memory, in her honor, by the International Astronomical Union. And this was because of a research done by one Professor S.C. Roy and one Professor Singh. And then it came up, and that article came in Culture and Science and Culture, which was started by Professor Meghnad Shah. So I told that I'll be making a reference to science and culture at a later stage of my talk. And then these were all scientists whom you see in the top row. In the bottom row, the person whom you see are not known as scientists, but they also questioned. I'm trying to tell you about the spirit, about the pulse of that particular era. Tagore was not known as a scientist, of course. If you read his Vishwapurichaya, you get a different kind of an impression. It was written uh, as an inspiration from his friend Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose. In fact, he almost took an isolation to a place in Almora. I have seen that place where he went to write this book, Vishwapurichaya, and he dedicated it to Professor S.N. Bose. Now, many of you must have visited Shantiniketan, and in Shantiniketan, one of the main attraction is the Rabindra Bhavan, the main museum. And annexed with that museum is a library where several books which were read by Tagore as a child or as an adolescent are kept. And I had the privilege of visiting that library. You have to take a special permission. And I saw several books, and it's very interesting that in every page of the book, Tagore, it was giving shivers through my spines, to giving me goosebumps to see the handwriting of Tagore on those books. And in one such book on science written by a famous teacher of science of that time, Charuchandra Bhattacharya, there was a chapter on electromagnet. And Tagore writes, খুব জটিল বিষয় না দেখলে বোঝার উপায় নেই. It's a complicated matter. I don't believe it unless I see it. So that is science. Seeing is believing. Swami Vivekananda, during his quest for God, well, I'm not talking about any kind of religious belief, but I'm only trying to sensitize you about the directness of the question he made. He questioned Maharshi Devendranath Tagore, the father of Rabindranath Tagore. And at a later stage, he comes to Dakshineshwar, and where he meets the famous sage Ramakrishna Paramahansadev, and he asks a very direct question: have you seen God? And this is the first time he gets an answer in affirmative. And Pat comes the next question: that can you show me? So they all question. Gandhiji did not pick up acids and alkalis from the shelves of a laboratory, but he picked up those things from the life of human being and questioned. And like all of them, Professor Meghnad Saha had also questioned. He questioned the basic principle of pressure of radiation. He questioned the linkage between ionization and temperature and pressure using a judicious combination of statistical mechanics and thermodynamics. I shall come to that. So, what I want to sensitize all of you about is that it was the age of reason, the age of questioning, and they all questioned. And another aspect of Renaissance, which I link with Professor M.N. Shah, we know about Marx and Engels' theory of socialism. Now, in Engels' view, Renaissance is a revolution. It's a very it's a revolution of a very big magnitude, and which gives rise to people, which brings out from people their best, and it brings out from the people diversity of thoughts which might have been hidden there. And that's why he took the name of Leonardo da Vinci, whom you can see on your screen, angels at the middle. On one end you find Leonardo da Vinci, on one end you find Professor Meghnad Saha. So his idea of Renaissance was exemplified using Leonardo da Vinci as his icon, because he was a polymath. He was a painter, a mathematician, a scientist, a sculptor, an engineer, and an architect. As I was telling, that this Renaissance gives a holistic view of knowledge. It compels the person, it compels a genius to not only to be single-minded, not only to look at a particular point, but to get a complete overview of things which are related to him, related to that particular topic. And so it happened with Professor M.N. Shah. See his contribution: pressure of radiation. Pressure of radiation. It is a very new concept, and among other things, it could explain the movement of the tail of the comet away from the sun. And then his famous Shah ionization formula. We know that the interior of stars, that in the interior of stars, temperatures are extremely high, and the elements present there are mostly in the atomic state. Shah argued that under such conditions, atoms move very rapidly and undergo frequent collisions. In the process, they are stripped of their valence electrons due to the collisions. This is referred to as thermal ionization, and it is accompanied by electron recapture to form neutral atoms. So this was a revolutionary concept. Shah ionization formula relates the temperature and pressure and ionization potential of atoms to their degree of ionization. The degree of ionization is represented by the mole fraction. And the mole fraction, I'm not going into the details of the formula, but the equation expresses the degree of ionization as a function of temperature, pressure, and ionization potential of the atoms present in the interior of a star. This is commonly referred to as Shah ionization formula. It implies that the degree of ionization will be more if the temperature is high, or the pressure and ionization potential are low temperature high and pressure and ionization potential are low. And as the temperature tends to zero, the mole fraction also tends to zero. So, however, this result should be taken with caution since gases do not exhibit ideal gas behavior at such low temperature. That is high temperature and low pressure. This formula finds several applications in diverse areas of physics and astrophysics as well as chemistry. In fact, Professor Shah can be named as the father of astrophysics in our country. It has been successfully used to explain the Fraunhofer spectrum of the sun, the spectrum of stars, formation of the ionosphere, electrical conductivity of flames, and to estimate the temperature of the atmosphere. It also finds application in plasma studies as well as ionization processes in semiconductors. So a large range of application can be found of this ionization formula, and no wonder that it was highly represented by a galaxy of scientists at Munich when he delivered that talk. And finally, this the most spectacular success of this ionization formula is in the categorization of the vast number of stars into few groups like B group, A group, G group, F group, K group, M group, which forms a continuous and linear series. It is also a matter of debate why such a phenomenal work could not earn him a Nobel Prize. Then comes the real gas equation of state. In fact, and also that on also his contribution on theory of relativity. With both, we associate with both of them. We can associate the name of Professor S. N. Bose. In fact, the real gas equation of state is known as Saha-Bose equation. You might have known, you all know that there are several equations of real gas. When we go from the perfect gas equation PV equal to RT, and then we find out the Van der Waals equation of state P plus A by V square into V minus B equal to RT. Now, if you remember the Andrews curve for carbon dioxide and the related matters, where through which you measure the critical temperature, critical volume, critical pressure, and the critical constant RTC by PCVC, you can find that the Van der Waals equation was quite a failure. It could not match the experimental results, but its form had a popularity. That is, you remove A by V square and B, it will read PV is equal to RT. So this A by V square is the correction term for the intermolecular attraction. The B is a correction term for finite volume. And then, so since it was a kind of a failure, in order to explain the real gases, particularly in terms of having correct value or matching with the value of the experimental results for PC, VC, TC, and RTC by PCVC, several other equations came up. The most, I think, conspicuous among them is the Dieterich equation. Then came Bartholet's equation, Beatty-Bridgman equation, Clausius's equation, but along with them came Saha-Bose's equation, and Saha-Bose's equation could explain the experimental results fairly well. It is very important because even to this date, there is an effort to calculate all the virial coefficients. In fact, we could, if you see the virial of Clausius and if you go for the statistical mechanical explanations of the virial coefficients, we find that up to coefficient number 4, B1, B2, B3, B4, it has been calculated. And more we go to the virial coefficient, more resemblance with the experimental results come. And at a certain stage, it was remarked by Kamerlingh Onnes that every real gas deserves deserves one unique equation of state for them. So this real gas equation of state is a very important contribution made by Professor M. N. Shah. And then, as you know, it was mentioned by Professor Nampuri that the theory of relativity, which was one of the iconoclasts, I'm talking about the era 1900 to 1930. In fact, there is a famous book by George Gamow, 30 Years That Shook Physics. It refers to the two iconoclasts, that is quantum mechanics and relativity. And in India, perhaps these two scientists had fully understood the theory of relativity as spelled out by Professor Albert Einstein and Minkowski, and that was translated in English. And Professor Bose had made a reference to that when he wrote that famous letter to Einstein. But along with that, along with these contributions in science, and just try to recall, well, I'm not making any comparison, but in 1905, that is the year of miracles, annus mirabilis of Albert Einstein, you see the different contributions: Brownian motion, specific theory, relativity, photoelectric effect. So those were diverse areas which he could do in 1905. So similarly, these contributions are no less, and it also has a wide range of topics in physics. And along with that, he was working for river planning. He was a socialist. He did not forget his social responsibilities and calendar reform. So side by side, I have placed Da Vinci and Meghnad Shah to explain that he could be considered as an icon of Indian resonance. If angels can consider Da Vinci as an icon of European Renaissance, similarly, he can be considered as an icon of Indian Renaissance. It is said that since he was a believer in the Renaissance and not revival, which means that perhaps he was not akin to the concepts which we at times draw from ancient India. Like he made a remark about Bhaskaracharya's research on gravitation, and he tells very clearly that it is said that, well, what Newton had done in 1665 was already done by Bhaskaracharya. But he mentions very clearly that Bhaskaracharya has nowhere done that calculation that they all move in an elliptic orbit, has not determined, his calculations could not determine the elliptic orbit and other details that follow along with the problem of central orbit. So this was a remark clearly made by Meghnad Shah, and he was labeled as an atheist. In fact, he also declared that he is an atheist. So, for all these reasons, for all these dogmatic beliefs, for all the superstitions, and particularly the ordeal he faced for being poor and a person of lower caste, he had tremendous unfaithfulness towards God. But the particular incident which made him atheist, an atheist permanently, was an incidence of Saraswati Puja in his school. Now, in Saraswati Puja, we offer Anjali, we call it Pushpanjali. And while he was going there to offer his Anjali, his Pushpanjali, that happened in his native place, he was he was obstructed that you cannot go because you belong to lower caste. So this had a tremendous ill impression on his mind. And the same thing continued in the hostel in Calcutta. So all these things, and particularly this incident of Saraswati Puja, the goddess of learning, made him an atheist. As I told that he became a member of parliament in 1952 from the Northwest constituency of Kolkata, Northwest Calcutta. And he was also asked to join the member of the Constituent Assembly, a great honor. Ultimately, he could not join because there was a stage when he started objecting to Gandhiji's charka and this khadi. And we all know that there was only one member of the leftist cadre, that was Mr. Somnath Lahiri. So ultimately, Professor Shah could not join. He was not allowed to join, but when his nomination was placed, he did not withdraw his nomination. So he was asked by a leader of Congress that you have so much of difference with Congress, but how did you agree to be nominated? So he said that he has taken the clue from Sharat Chandra Bose. Sharat Chandra Bose was the brother of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and leader of Congress, of the Erstwhile Congress. And he says that on his request, I have joined. He feels that in national planning, industrialization, river planning, my views will help the government a lot. And that's why I've agreed for the nomination. So, and are you sure that you will get the nomination? I think that you are not going to get the nomination. He says that I do not know why it should happen. I'm quite confident about getting the nomination. Now, this will happen because almost every day you give statement against the charkha and the khadi, and which are iconic from the point of view of Congress. So, will you express forgiveness for that? Then only they will consider you as a member of the Constituent Assembly. So he clearly said no. In fact, I was talking about his linkage with with Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy. Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy at a stage was favoring this charkha and khadi, and so he, or at least for that practical purpose, he detached himself from Acharya Prafulla Chandra Roy. So this person again said that if you are not ready to seek forgiveness, then you will not get the nomination. So then Professor Emin Shah said that, well, I don't believe in such conditions, and so I'll not be interested in getting nomination. I believe in science and not in slogans. So that was his remark. And then the interesting thing about the spelling of his name. Now, the name, as you know, is Meghnad Shah, Meghnad, not Meghnaath. So at the beginning, I told you about the. I think I have some time.
Five more minutes. Time is almost up. We are crossing the time.
I'll take another 3-4 minutes.
Okay, fine.
Uh, as I told, that the names of his brothers, his father's name was Jagannath Shah. We pronounce Jagannath. In the northern part or other parts of the country, it would be Jagannath. Uh, Two brothers were Joynath, Bijoynath. Other two brothers were Yudhishthir Lal, Kanai Lal, ending with Lal. But then he was among the first three brothers, so his name was given was Meghnad. Meg means cloud, and Nath means son of cloud. And later, he became very much influenced, as I told, by those European thoughts. The pioneer among them being Raja Rammohn Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, and of course, Meghnad Shah. So Meghnad Shah was a person of tremendous literary capability. And his Meghnad Bodh Kabbo, the poem, the verse about the killing of Meghnad by Lakshman, is a kind of iconic literature. It's a kind of a iconic literature in Bengali, Meghnad Bodh Kabbo. And you know that as per the mythology, Meghnad used to hide behind the clouds, and from there he would fight. And Lakshman would not have been able to kill him unless he had taken that unscrupulous move about which you all know. I'm not going to repeat that. So he was very much impressed. And he said that I'm really not Meghnad, I am Meghnad. Meghnad in Bangla means Vajraninad, which means the sound of the thunder. I am that sound of the thunder. And during entrance examination, while filling up the form, he himself changed his name from Meghnad to Meghnad. It is very interesting. In fact, I think at that time there was not much of restriction that your name has to be authenticated by some authority like Aadhaar card or something like that. But then he took it on himself that I am not Megnath, I am Megnath. In fact, there were several, well, I would like to skip them. There were several criticism about his not doing the line of the ancient Indian thoughts. And he had written answers to those criticism. One is most important, which is sarcastically used to say, "Shob bade ache." This particular pronunciation has the intonation of East Bengal accent, "Shob bade ache." Sarcastically, he used to mention. And so this is very important. In fact, we should not confuse the spelling of his name. It is Meghnad and not Meghnad. So, all about his socialistic moves, joining politics. I'd like to conclude with that. In his own words, scientists are often accused of living in the ivory tower. We have heard of JBS Holden, the contributions he made towards the outreach of science. So scientists are often accused of living in ivory tower and not troubling their mind with realities. And apart from my association with political movements in my juvenile years, I had lived in Ivory Tower up to 1930. See, he mentions, he blames himself that he was living in that Ivory Tower till 1930. But during the later half of his life, he lived for another 26 years. He passed away in 1956, and that was also for a call of duty. That when he was going to the Planning Commission meeting, he was getting delayed and he wanted to come out of his car and rush to Planning Commission, and there he had that heart attack. So he says that science and technology are as important as administration nowadays and as law and order. I have gradually glided into politics. See the use of the word glided. I have gradually glided into politics because I wanted to be of some use to the country in my own humble way. So that is the statement of a scientist called Professor Meghnad Shaha. In fact, when you look at the entire gamut of activities in which he was involved, which we can call an holistic approach towards a nationalistic movement, of course, using the vehicle of science, and then having tracks elsewhere, particularly in societal reforms, politics, etc. It's a kind of a melancholy. I feel that he has treaded that path all alone. Like Professor S.N. Bush also, as Professor Nampuri was mentioning, that when he was asked that why didn't you write to Einstein, he said that I don't need to do that. The matter has come out and I'm happy. So they were happy in their own world. Even Jagadish Chandra Bose was like that. And so before concluding, I would like to, I don't venture translating Tagore, but I remember two lines of a Tagore song. চিরদিন আমি পথের নেশায় পাথেয় করেছি হেলা, ছিন্ন পাতার সাজাই তরণী, একা একা করি খেলা। চিরদিন আমি পথের নেশায়, nesha means nasha, which we call in Hindi. Pather neshaয় মানে in my passion for the path which I am trading. So in my passion for the path, here the word nesha is used for passion. Again, I may be wrong because I am venturing Tagore, translating Tagore. Patheo korechi hala. Patheo means the kind of money which you need for your journey. Like we go to a place, we claim our tier. That's a very loose way of looking at the thing. But you need some money for your travel. So you have always ignored that. Patheo korechi hala. Hala means ignored. So in my journey, in my passion of the path which I am trading, I've ignored the cost. Chinno patar sajai taruni eka eka kori khala. I have created my boat with broken leaves and I play around with that all alone. So with this, I pay my tribute to Professor M. N. Shah, and I thank you all very, very much for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chinmay Ghosh. Very extensively, all the aspects of his personal life, his socio-economic contributions, socio-economic status with which he has grown, as very well explained by you. And I hope many of these things must be there somewhere, except he understood as a man of the ionization equation. Apart from that, all other contributions also must be somewhere included in our education system. With this, I open this forum for a few questions. Yes, any question? Udayanand,
No.
you are here. You are receiving
Yeah.
some questions on
No,
WhatsApp or on your mail chat box?
nothing is there. Nothing is there.
Okay. Then let us thank all of us. Can thank. Okay, somebody has asked something.
Yes.
Very okay. It's a comment. Okay.
Right. It's a comment.
Anyway, let us all thank the two speakers.
What is that comment? What is that comment?
It was a very wonderful, nice talk.
May I say something? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
So, Professor Ghosh, it was a wonderful talk. And I think it's very difficult to take care of the kind of dimension which is there of the personality of Meghnad Saha. And you really covered it beautifully.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you could have given another talk on the details of his scientific establishments, which he could do. And one thing which I would like to really tell, which really makes me very happy also, is this, that Feynman in his 3 volumes has not mentioned any other scientist's name as such, but he talks about Saha's ionization formula. And he actually says that it is very intuitive, that one can derive it very easily. And we know that this formula made a kind of a shift, transition from old astronomy to the modern astronomy itself.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a very interesting thing. Here he says, let us look at it, why this formula is correct. He starts with this question. And I think that in first volume itself, it appears. If I remember it correctly, somewhere in the 42nd chapter, he talks about it. So I think there were many new things which we came to know, and you very passionately, dissected the persona of Meghnad Saha and his political thought, I would say, which was very much nationalistic in a sense. Thank you. It was great.
Thank you,
truly.
sir. Thank you, sir.
So let us thank once again the speaker. Yeah, Vipin Singh, please start.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay then.
Sir.
Let us wind up.
Okay, sir. From Kerala RC, I thank all for attending this session. I thank the speakers. I hope tomorrow everybody will be attending this panel discussion.
I will join a little late because another function is there.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Well, once again, thank you all.
Just
Thank you all.
one comment here. Both the lectures sessions are available on YouTube channel of IAPT Central. So if you have missed anything, or if you would like to go through anything once again, the recordings are available.
Our special thanks to Ajay Ghatak, sir. He was also attending the session.
Yeah.
My pronouns once again to Professor Ghatak.
Yes.
We may have just one line comment from Professor Ghatak if he is there.
No, I think he's not there.
RC15 is organizing a whole day program on 28th of February in collaboration with Scottish Church College, Calcutta.
Oh,
And then, as usual, like every year, we are going to have a online talk. Of course, that will happen on 2nd of March. But on 28th of February, we are having National Science Day celebration in collaboration with Scottish Church College.
So